In this video, we're going to do a function and safety check on the Canik Mate MC9 Prime. Anytime you reassemble your firearm after having it apart for cleaning or for any other reason, or the magazine, you want to run through some quick safety and functionality checks to make sure you have a safe gun that is working properly. This procedure is not found in the Canik Mate MC9 Prime manual. It is just a series of checks that I always do every time I'm done cleaning or reassembling any of my firearms. The firing pin safety check is a check that you can do before you even reassemble the firearm after a cleaning. So this is real simple. You want to make sure that the firing pin safety is working properly. So when you push on the back of the firing pin right here, if you push this forward, you should not see the firing pin come through the firing pin hole in the breech face. So if you look in that hole, you will see the firing pin moving slightly, but it's not coming through. If you press on the firing pin plunger and press on the back of the firing pin at the same time, you will see the firing pin come through the firing pin hole. And that is there to prevent your gun from firing if it is dropped. Before you start this procedure, as usual, always make sure that the magazine is out of the firearm and there is no round in the chamber. This is the magazine check. So first, insert the magazine into the firearm. Make sure it cannot be removed by pulling on it, and make sure when you press the magazine release, the magazine falls free very, very easily. And put it back into the firearm. Rack the slide to the rear, and it should lock back. Anytime the magazine is empty and you rack the slide to the rear, the slide should lock back on the empty magazine. Alright, then you want to do a quick test of the slide. Make sure the slide feels right when you move it back and forth. Make sure it moves freely and relatively easily. And you bring the slide all the way to the back and let go. Make sure the slide closes all the way. Alright, this is the trigger safety check. So this firearm and most striker-fired firearms have this little lever here on the front of the trigger, and that's the trigger safety. And that is to prevent the trigger from moving backward unless someone is actually pressing on the face of the trigger and pressing that safety back as well. So in order to test this, we want to rack the slide, make sure that the striker indicator shows that the striker is cocked, point the gun in a safe direction always, and then grab the trigger on either side without pressing the trigger safety and try and push it to the rear. It should not go to the rear and the striker should not be released. And now point the gun in a safe direction, put your finger on the trigger properly, press the trigger, and you should hear the striker being released. If you have a California compliant firearm, you may need to have the empty magazine inserted to do this test. Next, we want to do the trigger and trigger reset check. So once again, rack the slide so that your indicator shows that your striker is cocked. Point the gun in a safe direction, press the trigger, and then hold it to the rear. Make sure you heard the striker fall. Now simulate firing of the gun while holding the trigger back. Rack the slide again, and then slowly release pressure on the trigger until you hear the reset. You'll hear a click and you'll kind of feel a click. And at this point, pointing the gun in a safe direction, press the trigger again, and the striker should fall again. And that is a successful trigger and trigger reset test. For these next two checks, I use dummy rounds. These are just fake ammunition that you can use to safely test your firearm. These are made by Artemis. These are my preferred dummy rounds. They come in a nice handy little case, and they actually have replaceable bumpers in the back. Alright, so the first thing I do is test the chamber loaded indicator. To do that, I just put a couple of dummy rounds into a magazine, load the magazine, chamber around, and check to make sure that the chamber loaded indicator is raised up just a little bit so that you can tell in the dark or low light whether you have a round in the chamber or not. So that is working properly. And when you don't have a round in the chamber, that should be flat and you should not feel that at all. Alright, the next test that I do with the dummy rounds is I want to make sure that the gun is going to extract and eject rounds properly, and also to make sure that the magazine is feeding properly. So to do that, I just put any number you want, but I use 5 rounds, put 5 dummy rounds into the magazine, and you want to do this for each magazine that you have to make sure that you have 100% functioning magazines. Alright, and then load dummy round into the firearm, load a round into the chamber. So what I'm going to do is simulate firing the weapon by briskly racking the slide 5 times. And each time I rack the slide, it should extract and eject one of the dummy rounds. And on the 5th time, the slide should lock to the rear because the magazine will be empty. And that will show that the magazine is feeding properly as well as the extraction and ejection is working. Alright, so it looks like this. And the slide locked back on the empty magazine. Now when I take out the magazine, it's empty and the slide closes fully on its own. And that's it for the function and safety check. Thanks for watching. If you found it helpful, please hit like below. Please check out the description below if you need dummy rounds or if you want to check out some of my other videos. And thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.